Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to the 5 Callings 46 Souls video, where I do a brief 30-second introduction of each of the 46 souls in Rift currently. This video will show the basics of each soul and introduce their individual playstyles, which will hopefully give new and returning players enough information to make a decision on what calling and souls they'd like to play. Listed here you'll see the names of the souls color-coded to match the associated calling. I hope you all enjoy the video, and thanks for watching. Pyromancer focuses on dealing massive amounts of damage from a distance with their arsenal of fire-based skills. This soul is used in all varieties of gameplay, but typically works the best when paired up with a group because of its primary focus on damage dealing and less of a focus on hardiness or survival. Pyromancer's main job is to hurl constant barrages of fire at the enemy using skills such as Fireball, Fulminate, and even channeled abilities like Flame Volley. If this glass cannon playstyle is something you're interested in, Pyromancer is going to be a great choice. Warlock possesses a large variety of powerful damage over time abilities that are cast from a distance. These abilities deal a lot of damage on their own, but can also have their damage increased with skills like Empowered Darkness, and can also be reapplied with various other skills. Warlock is great at dealing damage to one or multiple targets using its multiple damage over time abilities, along with its ability to spread those afflictions to other enemies around its target. This soul is a lot of fun and is great for people who enjoy damage over time style gameplay. Elementalists have access to 4 different elemental pets that allow you to choose a pet based on the situation at hand. These pets, coupled with a diverse elemental skill set, give the Elementalist access to some really strong solo play as well as some really strong damage capabilities that are based largely on pet interactions. For instance, Elementalists receive a skill called Intensify Elements that increases your damage and your pet's damage by a significant amount, which is a staple of this soul's playstyle. If you enjoy pet classes, Elementalist is going to be a fantastic option. Necromancer is the undead conjurer, able to summon 3 different types of pets based on whether you need a tank pet, a melee damage pet, or a range damage pet, while also being able to summon a variety of other undead creatures temporarily to aid you in combat. Necromancers also receive the ability to possess their current pet, allowing you to take its form and gain strong abilities based on the pet chosen that you can use in combat. Necromancers have a lich form as well that increases mana regeneration and damage for a brief time while transforming them into a lich. Harbinger uses different summon weapons to deal damage in melee range based on if you need single target damage or area of effect damage. This soul is more or less a battle mage that utilizes a skill called Eldritch Armor to give you instant cast hard hitting abilities called procs periodically. Harbinger has many different slashing attacks to deal damage, but it can also transform itself into a giant metal angelic form using a skill called Empyrean Ascension, granting you increased damage output and looking really cool while you're at it. Stormcaller is just like it sounds, the conjurer of storms. This soul utilizes many powerful air and water based abilities such as Lightning Field, Hailstorm, and Lightning Arc to deal massive amounts of area of effect damage to all enemies caught in the sights of the Stormcaller. This soul also picks up skills such as Raging Storm that focuses Storm's power into a single beam. Stormcaller is fantastic for people who enjoy electrocuting multiple enemies at once, dealing incredible amounts of damage. Dominator is a control soul, possessing a large variety of skills that focus on debilitating the enemy or draining their resources like mana or energy. This soul has the ability to summon split personality ghosts to fight for him, turn foes into squirrels, effectively rendering them useless for a brief time, and also to throw enemies into the air and interrupt them, among other strategic skills. Dominator really shines in player versus player combat, but can be used in a variety of situations throughout Rift, particularly due to its strong area of effect abilities and its reflex. Archon utilizes many different abilities that increase the attributes and outgoing damage of all of your party array members by a large margin. Classified as a support soul, the majority of its abilities are based around increasing damage done, such as Flaring Power and Lava Field. Later in the game, Archon's skills become extremely important in a raid environment because bosses will require a certain amount of damage to be done in a given time frame, or the boss will kill everyone instantly. Archon is key in making sure that this does not happen. Chloromancer is arguably the most versatile healer in the game, casting its Life-Giving Veil buff for raid healing, or its Life-Bound Veil buff for single target healing on the fly whenever it needs to change it. This soul is highly sought after for its ability to deal a lot of damage while healing, as well as provide a skill called Wild Growth to increase your party or raid's damage. Also, Living Energy, which reduces the ability cost of your party or raid members by 5%. Chloromancers do healing by damaging targets with their life-based abilities, making them really fun to play, and also a valuable contribution to any group. Arbiter is the Mage tank. This soul is designed to take massive amounts of damage and survive so your group can focus on killing the target. Arbiter has some of the best threat generation utility in the game with skills like Misdirection that transfer all threat to you. They also have extremely strong abilities like Shield of the Northwind that gives you a 100% of your hit points shield, effectively doubling your hardiness for a short time. Arbiter also has some great combat abilities that can reduce the damage taken and assist your party members with keeping you alive more efficiently. Tempest is an air-based damage soul that utilizes various pulses, or abilities that deal large amounts of air damage from a distance. Based around electricity, Tempest has some very strong potential for huge upfront damage using a skill called Wavelength that removes the cast time and cooldown timer from certain high damage pulse abilities. Tempest also gets some strong area of effect abilities, allowing it to deal larger amounts of damage when multiple enemies are present. Tempest also receives some cool utility, such as being able to fake its own death. Reaver is the warrior's ranged Swiss Army knife. It can deal large amounts of damage to a single target, to a few targets, or even to a large amount of targets. Damage over time abilities make up a large portion of Reaver's damage. Shadow of Dread is an ability that applies all known damage over time abilities to the enemy, and using another skill can allow those same damage over time abilities to be spread to multiple enemies. Reaver also has some great skills for well-rounded gameplay, such as a snare, a teleport, and the ability to escape combat when in trouble. Paragon is used for pure single-target carnage. It utilizes a variety of powerful skills that range from giving it the maximum attack points immediately, to allowing certain skills to hit twice instead of once. This soul has some incredibly high output damage using these abilities, and can also use skills like Grasping the Horizon that allow it to use some of those skills from a distance if the enemy tries to run away. With its high damage output and variety of utility skills, Paragon is a killing machine. Riftblade is a well-rounded melee soul able to be used in many types of combat. Based on using different burst finishers such as Rift Burst and Icy Burst, Riftblade deals extra damage after coating its weapons with these burst effects as its finishers. With the ability to do great single target damage as well as great area of effect damage, Riftblade can be used whenever there is a need to deal high single target damage and be able to swap to area of effect damage while still in combat. This makes Riftblade a great spec for the vast majority of content in Rift. Warlord is a melee damage soul that has a large variety of unique skills, making it very versatile in a variety of builds. Although not as strong for player versus environment style content, it has many tools that are great for player versus player, and also great as a sub-soul choice to pick up abilities such as a pull, grabbing an enemy and pulling it to your location. Warlord also has a lot of tools used for survivability, which makes it a great soul to use for solo or leveling, since it is much more difficult to be killed while utilizing the self-healing and survivability based skills Warlord has access to. Champion is a melee area of effect soul that deals massive amounts of damage to all enemies within its short range. Using skills such as Cornered Beast and Death Blossom, the champion is best used in situations where there will be a large amount of creatures to kill all at once. This soul also has the ability to deal mediocre single target damage, however this isn't its main focus. It also receives a fair bit of debuffs with its marks, increasing critical hit chance for your party on multiple enemies, as well as reducing those enemies' armors by a certain amount. Beastmaster is the warrior's support soul, offering many powerful abilities such as Command to Attack, which increases your party or raid's attack power and spell power greatly for a time, or Enrage, which increases the chance to critical hit as well as the damage done during a critical hit. Based on a lot of bleed style attacks, Beastmaster involves maintaining damage over time abilities in melee, and has a pet to help with damage output. It also receives a lot of other debuffs and buffs that can be paramount to surviving encounters in a variety of content in Rift. Liberator is a powerful healing soul that utilizes many healing over time abilities to achieve a large healing output. This soul relies heavily on maintaining these healing over time abilities, but also receives some other instant cast and cast time healing skills that produce a large amount of healing as well. Although primarily an area of effect healer, healing up to 10 players at once, it can also do significant healing to a single player using some of its single target healing skills, making it a valuable healer in group content later in the game. Void Knight is a powerful tank soul possessing a large amount of utility. It has many abilities that reduce the damage it takes, as well as provide a large amount of shielding, reducing the damage it takes even further. It has the ability to purge buffs from its foes, stun or debilitate them, cleanse harmful effects from itself or its party, and a variety of other excellent skills that make it a very versatile tank for handling complex mechanics in later game content. Void Knight is a fantastic choice for players who are interested in tanking as their primary objective. Paladin is another tank soul that the warrior has access to, focusing more on heavy cooldowns such as Life's Rapture that can quite literally save the raid's life, and abilities like Touch of Life that will heal you fully once every minute and a half. Paladin can be used for a variety of reasons across most content in Rift, but there are stacking issues with an ability one of the other callings get with its Life's Rapture ability. So most of the time Void Knight will be used instead, but Paladin is still a great option with a lot of unique abilities and an interesting playstyle. Inquisitor is a ranged damage soul based mostly off of its channeled abilities. It gets 4 different damaging channels, 3 of which can be reset and cast again for some incredible burst damage. Inquisitor also uses 3 different bolts, Bolt of Depravity, Bolt of Retribution, and Bolt of Judgment to deal a lot of its sustained and some of its burst damage. Inquisitor also has some great abilities that help it survive in solo content or player versus player, making it an excellent all-around choice for new players to learn and play. Shaman is a melee combat soul based on alternating between physical attacks and magical attacks. This interaction, along with the abilities such as Rage of the North, which gives you a substantially higher chance to critical hit, makes Shaman do large amounts of damage to its foes. Shaman also has a few damage over time abilities, most notably Frozen Wrath, which can be spread to its nearby enemies using one of its area of effect abilities. Shaman's primary purpose is single target melee damage, however it can deal respectable area of effect damage as well. Druid is a well-rounded soul that is based around its different pets. Being primarily a melee soul, it receives good single target damage skills, as well as excellent area of effect damage skills while fighting alongside its pet, which can have a specific purpose such as DPS, healing, or tank. Druid is typically used for soloing content and doing open world objectives because of the strength of the Druid and pet combination in combat. Druids have excellent burst damage and almost unparalleled survivability for accomplishing difficult quests and adventures in game. Kabbalist is an area of effect soul, dealing massive amounts of damage to multiple enemies with its Tyranny of Death ability. Kabbalist will place a Tyranny of Death debuff on the enemy and then spread it to all surrounding enemies. When one of these enemies dies or the Kabbalist triggers it manually, each target with the debuff on them deals damage to all enemies around them, resulting in a huge area of effect burst damage. Kabbalist also has access to many crowd control skills that can be very useful in player versus player and later in the game to stop enemies in their tracks. Purifier is one of the strongest single target healing and shielding souls in Rift with fire-based healing skills. It gets very strong abilities such as Flame of Life that does massive amounts of healing over 6 seconds to 10 targets in your raid, most of the time making them pretty much unkillable. It also gets a skill called Latent Blaze that will trigger when its target gets below 30% health and heal them automatically for a very large amount. These skills coupled with its amazing shielding ability makes Purifier very sought after for endgame content. Warden is the Cleric's area of effect healing soul, or raid healing soul, which uses water-based skills. It pumps out healing with its burst-style healing abilities, such as Pool of Restoration and Healing of Fusion. It also gets strong skills like Wave of Renewal that throws a giant wave all around you, healing every person that it touches. And also Monsoon, which applies 3 of your healing over time abilities to allies, producing massive healing output. Warden also receives a skill that deals damage and heals for a smaller amount than its dedicated healing abilities, which allows you to contribute to damaging the target. Sentinel's main healing abilities are its invocations, which have varying healing power and varying cast times and mana cost. Using these, the cleric can make decisions based on the situation as to what ability to use. This soul is a powerful burst healer that gets abilities such as Fullness of Life, healing a player for 100% of your health, and also Healer's Covenant, which reduces the damage your ally takes by 40% for 10 seconds. These types of abilities, coupled with its strong invocations, make Sentinel excellent in player versus player and group content like dungeons. Defiler is one of the most unique souls in Rift, being a hybrid that is able to do both damage and also healing. The Defiler has 4 skills called Links that it will cast on 4 different members, which reduce the amount of damage those players take and transfer a portion of that damage to you. Defiler also has access to one of the strongest cooldowns in the game called Unstable Transformation, which reduces the damage the player it casts on takes by a large margin and also increases the incoming healing. This skill alone can turn the tide of battle, making Defiler a valuable addition to a group. Oracle is a support soul, offering valuable cooldowns such as Defend the Fallen, which increases damage done and shields allies who are close, as well as things like Insignia Protection, which allows the raid to trigger shields on themselves periodically. This collective raid damage and survivability increase, as well as other supportive skills Oracle has access to, make it a very valuable addition to a raid working on more difficult content. Having good support players on a team is very important, and Oracle is a soul that is highly recommended for players to learn. Justicar is the Cleric's tanking soul. It's based on using skills that allow you to build stacks of Conviction, which can then be consumed to cast a magical single-target hammer, or an area effect hammer, among other skills. Justicar is also the only tank that has a Battle Resurrection skill, allowing it to perform the same function a healing soul can, only as a tank. In addition, whenever they use abilities, they passively heal the group with a skill called Salvation. Justicar also receives some strong self-healing abilities and defensive cooldowns that can be used to lessen the load on the healer. Assassin sneaks through the shadows and deals large amounts of single-target damage through its weapon poisons and attacks from stealth. One of the highest single-target damage souls the rogue has access to, Assassins are great burst and great sustained damage, but do need to be in melee range mostly. They also have skills such as permanent stealth that will only expire when you are damaged or when you leave stealth manually. This soul receives skills like Jagged Strike that deal large amounts of bleed damage, as well as Poison Malice, which increases all your weapon poison damage for a short time. Nightblade does its best damage when in melee, but the majority of its skills can be cast from a short range as well. Nightblade uses abilities that add extra damage with each swing with Scourge of Darkness, and also abilities like Living Flame that hit multiple targets and apply a damage over time ability to each enemy hit every time they're hit. Nightblades are very versatile and can pull good single target damage, excellent multi-target damage, and fantastic area of effect damage as well, giving them the ability to adapt to virtually any situation in Rift. Blade Dancer is a melee soul with some amazing area of effect burst and also decent single target damage as well. It uses different dances such as Blade and Soul Parity, or Fated Blades, that produce different effects such as raising critical hit chance by a large amount or increasing attack power. With these dances active, Blade Dancer can use its 100 Blades or Dancing Steel abilities to deal massive amounts of area effect damage to all foes caught in it. Blade Dancer is another all-around great soul that can shine in a variety of environments, especially when you can utilize its area effect channels. Marksman is the rogue's master of the bow, able to use a skill called Bullseye that increases the chance to critical hit, and use skills such as Rapid Fire Shot, which will fire multiple shots to maim enemies. It is very mobile and uses powerful archery skills to deal range damage. Marksman also has a fair bit of skills that help it survive, such as On the Double, which provides a shield and movement speed buff, as well as a hard-hitting channel ability called Sentry Battery that deals a lot of damage as well. Marksman is a great soul for new players. Ranger utilizes 3 different pets, which are a raptor, used for damage, a wolf, used primarily for crowd control, and a warthog, used to tank. Because of this, Rangers are well suited for solo gameplay and survivability. They also get excellent archery skills like Twin Shot that deal damage to the enemy from ranged. Ranger also possesses unique abilities like Animalism and Feral Aggression that boost the Ranger and its pet significantly, allowing them to deal a lot more damage for a short time. Rangers are extremely mobile and really great for solo adventuring. Saboteur is a ranged area of effect damage soul focusing on bombs and traps to deal damage. They have the option to choose between 2 different charges to apply to an enemy and then detonate them with a few select skills for excellent damage. They also have a variety of bombs that deal bleed damage, direct damage, or pulsing damage. Saboteur possesses good utility, allowing them to debilitate or snare large groups of enemies and stop them from hurting your party. Explosives are a Saboteur's forte, and it uses them to great effect in parties or raids. Tactician has a few unique mechanics that make it stand out. It's based on 4 different torrents, or conal long-range abilities, that can hit a large number of targets. These torrents can deal fire, ice, or death damage, or even heal players. The other mechanic is the Tactician's cores. It has a variety of cores that can be dropped with varying effects, such as increasing the raid's damage on the target and healing your team. Tactician is versatile for things such as open world rifts because it can deal large amounts of AoE damage and do large amounts of healing, and can also bring unique buffs to the party. Bard is the rogue's support soul, based on instruments and musical-based magic. They deal mediocre damage, but more importantly have skills that raise your team's outgoing damage and healing by a large margin. They also have versatile skills that can provide things such as faster resource regeneration for a short time and ability cost reductions, making the party or raid much more efficient. Often one of the 2 most important roles in a raid, Bard is extremely important to have for ensuring the maximum amount of damage is being dealt to your enemy. Physician is a healing soul based primarily on a cast time healing ability called Causal Treatment. This soul has access to a variety of very strong skills that can reduce the damage taken and pump out healing to a raid member, or even use an ability called Alternative Treatment and heal up to 5 members using its single target abilities. Physician is a very strong healing soul that has great healing output, great shielding potential, and excellent abilities for burst healing to save a player's life in the heat of combat. In addition, Physician also does fantastic as a player versus player healer. Riftstalker possesses the most mobility of any tank, with 4 teleports and a unique set of skills called Memory Capture and Flashback, allowing you to set a point and then teleport to that point up to 50 meters away. They also have access to a large variety of cooldowns, although many of them are on long timers. Riftstalker does not use a sword and shield, but rather 2 weapons, aligning nicely with the rogue archetype. This soul is very versatile, with one of the strongest abilities tanks get, making them take 90% less damage for 5 seconds while also removing all negative effects. Vulcanist uses powerful abilities like Ethereal Beam and Molten Wave to damage the enemy from afar. Every so often the Vulcanist can attune itself with a Drake, changing the way your character looks and increasing damage substantially for a brief time. It also uses its Beacon of the Drake to deal large amounts of damage to a single target or multiple targets. Vulcanist primarily operates out of the Fury side of its Fury and Cunning bar in order to use a few of its key skills. For players who enjoy ranged combat, Vulcanist is a powerful and fun gameplay option. Dervish is based around 2 hard-hitting attacks called Whirling Dervish and Earthfall. The Dervish playstyle involves alternating between full Fury and full Cunning to use these strong abilities. This soul can also attune to the power of the Wind Serpent, granting full Cunning and increased damage, as well as changing the way your character looks for a brief time. Focusing primarily on massive single-target damage, the Dervish can still do some respectable area of effect damage while using Whirling Dervish. If you enjoy flurries of attacks with large hits, this soul won't disappoint. Typhoon is the Primalist range area of effect soul, using primarily water and air-based attacks to inflict pain on groups of enemies. Typhoon is based on trying to build turmoil and consuming those stacks of turmoil for hard-hitting area of effect attacks. Typhoon can also attune itself to the power of the Griffin, giving you the maximum amount of turmoil, max cunning, and also changing the way your character looks for a brief time. Typhoon is for players who enjoy drowning their enemies in the Hurricane-style gameplay, taking down multiple enemies at once. Berserker is based on raw area of effect melee carnage, having some of the highest burst damage in the game to multiple enemies. This soul uses powerful abilities to increase its outgoing damage and slam them with water and death-based short-range attacks. The Berserker can also attune itself with the power of the Tiger, granting the Primalist full Fury and allowing it to cast select skills with no cooldown timers. This soul can really mow through large groups of enemies using its powerful area of effect skills, making it a lot of fun for players who enjoy melee gameplay. Preserver uses powerful nature-based magic to heal allies in battle. Although strongest when focusing on a single ally, Preserver can also keep multiple group members alive at times as well. This soul can also attune to the power of the Deer Spirit, increasing your critical hit chance by 100%, applying powerful healing over time effects to 10 allies, as well as changing your character's look briefly. Preserver is extremely powerful in player versus player gameplay as well, making it a very well-rounded healing soul that appeals to players whose playstyle involves large single-target healing. Titan is the Primalist tank soul, able to mitigate large amounts of damage while protecting your allies from harm. This soul is able to attune itself to the power of the Ram, healing you instantly for 100% of your health, healing you for 7% of your health every second for the duration, as well as changing your form for a short time. Titan receives powerful area of effect damage abilities like Upheaval and Earthquake, as well as abilities like Life Warding Beacon that apply a small shield to allies surrounding the beacon. Titan is a great choice for players who want to be on the front lines protecting the group.